Welcome, welcome everyone to the Newly podcast, where you get practical, no BS insights on how to grow yourself in your career. I am so excited to welcome my guest today, Kurt Schmidt, a friend and mentor of mine. I'm so lucky to call you a friend and mentor. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Britta. I really appreciate the opportunity today. It means a lot, and I'm excited to see since we first met how far you've grown and the work you're doing now. It's fantastic to be a part of it. So thank you. My name's Kurt, and I'm a president and partner at a company called Foundry, where we do custom software design and development, and in the SaaS sort of world, we help a lot of SaaS companies kind of accelerate their product growth and then I moonlight on the side as a podcaster and an author, and recently released a book on networking that I've been excited about. So I've kind of taken my 25 years of my career and kind of tried to compile some of the best tidbits I've learned into building your career through networking and launch that book. So yeah, excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. And so everybody knows this is the wonderful little book, the little book of networking. I'm going to definitely give it to probably everyone that I know that's going to graduate from college. It's such an incredible, just very concise, very useful. Every single word is so pertinent to how to grow yourself, how to grow your career, how to grow your network. And I want to preface this conversation by saying Kurt gave me some of the best advice that I've ever gotten in networking. And, during the pandemic, this is how I met Kurt. I ended up commenting, you kind of talk about it in the book a little bit in the beginning, but how you wanted to help people who were losing their jobs during the pandemic. And, I magically got on your calendar, and I remember I was telling you, I was kind of an Eeyore about networking and about how, it was just phony and blah, blah, blah. And what you said sort of stopped me in my tracks. You said, Well, networking is really nothing more than just finding cool people that are doing cool stuff that you care about. And if you're doing it any other way, then you're doing it wrong.
Yep.
And I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. Yeah, elaborate on that. I love that.
Yeah, so that's the thing. One of the reasons why I did write the book, because so many people do have, and I don't know exactly where it comes from, but maybe it's because the when people label events like networking events, it's always this "hello, my name is" tag, and then you're awkwardly walking around trying to interrupt conversations that are already having to introduce yourself. And I've been at those things, and I hate those things. And so I
Mhm,
think because historically people have labeled those things as networking events. That's what then people assume networking is. And
mhm,
what I've learned over the years is that that is not that is not networking. Like, they can call it networking. You can, yeah, exactly, you can call it whatever you want. But for me, networking has always been about trying to build micro partnerships with people, right?
mhm,
These abilities to say, you have value, I have value, let's find ways that we can exchange value over time, right? Because a lot of people think, well, I'm trying to get a job, and then there's my friends, right?
mhm.
And there's this big gap between that, right? And so the way I call it out is that, yes, in that kind of space between friends and colleagues is that kind of professional network you build. And what I'd like to label, like I said, is kind of this micro partnership. You might not be able to provide value to each other that day, that year, um,
Mhm.
that decade. That's not the point. The point is to exactly what you were saying, Britta, is to find people that are doing cool things, right? Yeah, what do they always say in startup world, right? Bet on the jockey, not on the horse, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so you meet someone, you can tell they're talented, they're smart, they've got their head on their shoulders, they're going places, they've got good ideas, they're in line, their values match yours, all those different things. These are people that, and if they're in, your industry, these are people you want to attach yourself to, and find ways to help them. They will find ways to help you, and it's great. And like JFK said a long time ago, right? A rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Mm,
So if we can work together to kind of raise the tide, we lift each other up as we go. And that's why I think it's so important that networking is a part of your lifestyle. It doesn't have
yes.
to be everything you do, but it does have to be a part of your building a professional career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how you sort of came to networking. Would you tell everybody a little bit about where you started and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, well, for me, like I said, it was a lot of um, a lot of pain, because I had assumed growing up that you just kind of throw your resume out there and then you sit and wait for someone to pick you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And still, so many people do it that way
Mm,
today. I mean, I just did a show with a recruiter yesterday, and her advice was, don't even apply for jobs unless you know somebody there or you've got an inside track. Don't blind apply anymore. But if you were to ask somebody 5, 10 years ago, they'd say the exact opposite. They're like, no, blind apply. So things have changed
mhm,
over time. And for me, like I said, when I started, I was just going out and waiting for someone to pick me.
mhm.
And where we're at now, what's great, thanks to social media, LinkedIn, we can pick ourselves.
Yes, I love that. We can pick ourselves. I love that. I think for me, the coolest thing about social media, and I wouldn't say I'm like a social media influencer or guru or, really intense about social media, but the coolest thing about LinkedIn is it's basically like a never-ending cocktail party where
Yes.
you CEOs and people that would never give you the time of day in person, but
Yep.
you comment on their post and surprise, surprise, you're developing a relationship. Talk more about how you've used LinkedIn or how you've
Yeah.
used these various channels.
Yeah, so part of networking is obviously meeting people and learning what they do and how they do it. The next big step in networking is staying top of mind with those people, letting people
Mhm,
know what you're looking for, what new value you can provide, what new connections you can provide. And so where LinkedIn is really great is to stay top of mind with these folks that you've connected with, and letting them know what you're up to, or posting things that remind them of what your values are or the things that you're interested in. And if you look at the stats with LinkedIn, I mean, it's like 2% of people actually create content on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So it's pretty easy to stand out, especially, in local networks, right? Which is also very important, obviously, for that the job search sort of aura that you want to create, right?
Right.
But then if you also look at where LinkedIn gets most of its money, about 60-70% of its revenue come from recruiters. So it is a place that is built for recruiters to find people to give jobs to. So if we take those two things, if we look at the percentage of people that actually are posting regularly and consistently is like 2 to 1% of the people that are on there. And then you have where all the revenue is coming from, which is recruiters and all those things. It is huge in that opportunity to be connected with people that are looking to actively help you build your career, because it benefits them too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I didn't know that stat about recruiters, that 60% of their revenue comes from recruiters. That's so
Or more.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's so funny is I've gotten pretty much all of my jobs since the pandemic, I've gotten because of LinkedIn, and not because I was applying for any jobs on
Right.
LinkedIn.
Exactly.
It was all because I was creating relationships with people, and then I took those into the real world, and then things start to happen.
Right.
I
And that's the thing, Britta, like, I don't mean to interrupt, but when, 15 years ago, like I haven't gotten a job using a resume. And I mean, I own a business now, but before times I didn't use a resume to get a job because it was my network. And when I was out working with people professionally and I saw people losing their jobs, I was like, they were telling me like, oh, I've been applying for 6 months. And I'm like, 6 months and you haven't found anything? Like, why is that? Like, you must need to build your network. And they're like, oh, I don't network. And I'm like, oh,
No wonder.
so for me, the idea is that the more you can spend on building those professional relationships, the more job security you have.
Mm,
And it's super important to do that, especially if you work in the tech space at all, right?
mhm.
And because again, as we've seen over the last 6 months, it's fluctuating all over the place.
Yeah.
But there's tons of opportunity out there, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like your metaphor about, I think you've said this to me once. I don't know. Maybe it was you or maybe it wasn't you, but there was some metaphor about how your network is your garden, and
Yeah.
if you cultivate it well, it'll feed you no matter what.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it was in relation, we were talking about how you'd never used a red or had probably the past 20 years. And I remember I was so floored by that stat. Talk more about that, how your
Yeah.
network sort of fed you in your career.
Well, just the the experience you just mentioned, but of not having to go on and apply and find those jobs. You were great at posting sort of where you were at, what your needs were, what you were looking for, also what you can provide, and reminding people of that. Because what happens is that these opportunities just appear. They don't. If you've ever been in leadership in a business, sure, you have forecasts and you have plans for the year and all that stuff. But again, you know, plans are worthless. Planning is great.
Yeah, yeah,
Planning is great, but plans are worthless. So you come
yeah,
up with this plan, but I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a room with an executive and they're like, "We got to get more people in here next week." And so HR is like, "Okay, well, let me get a job description together. Let me post it. Let me get some things." And then all of a sudden you've got this 6 week long process, right?
yeah,
Um, but if you are connected with people in that sort of loop and you're letting them know, I'm looking for work in this space, I'm looking to break into that space. Maybe I was in marketing and now I'm really interested in getting into product management.
mhm,
So what should you do? You should probably start networking a bit more with product managers
yeah,
and learning from them and seeing those opportunities. And one of those people might say, you know what, at my job right now, they're looking for a junior person to come in and get started in product management. And they need them like right away. Um, you know, now just give me your resume, you know,
Right.
and I'll go in and I'll sell you. So for me, it was the idea of a resume was kind of the last step in any sort of job thing. It was more like a formal exchange of like, yes, I am formally applying for this role.
Right. Right. I think what's so interesting about that dynamic is that in many ways, business has changed a lot, and
Okay.
developing your career has changed a lot with all these new resources. But in many ways, it sort of hasn't. Historically, developing your career is kind of about who you knew, and some people I think are sort of resentful of that. But I also
Yep.
think, you know, um, it really is up to you to develop the kind of people in your network that feel really valuable and that you can provide value to. So it still is about sort of who you know, and what would you say to somebody who kind of bristles at that
Oh
and
man.
that's that?
Yeah, I've had some real like visceral feedback on certain things. I've had people say, well, I have kids and I have, this, and I don't have time for this sort of thing. I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, you do. You do. You're not prioritizing it. And
Mhm.
you don't have the right system in place. So the reason why people bristle at it is because they're doing it wrong.
Mhm.
And that's why they're finding it unenjoyable. That's why they're finding no benefit in it, is because they are not doing it correctly.
Mm.
They are not looking at networking, excuse me, as a lifestyle, as sort of something you weave into what you're currently doing versus a whole separate standalone sort of activity that now you have to sort of plug in some fashion. It should be very natural. It's not going to be right at first. It's going to take some time. Um, Part of that is learning how to express yourself and how to ask for specific things, right? Like I've told you, Britta, a million times, like you get 100% of what you don't ask for. So
Yeah, yeah.
so if you're not out telling people this is what I'm looking for and asking like why would you think they're out there looking for those things for you as well?
Right. Yeah.
um, because it's our human nature to want to help each other, right? And so, and to have a positive outlook on each other's careers, right? And each other's things. But if I don't know you got laid off, I don't know you got laid off,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I can't help you. I can't introduce you to somebody. And we might have worked together 10 years ago, and I had a fond memory of that. And I could probably introduce you to 5 or 6 people, but I don't know that you're in this situation because you're not out there sharing this is what I need and this is what I'm asking for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to refer to your book because you talked just recently about how, if you're not enjoying it, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
In your book, you say um, networking is genuinely the career making secret that they don't teach in school. And
Yes.
then previous to that, you said it's about simple time management, prioritization with a focus on relationship building. It's about making a conscious decision to invest in your career and do the things you need to do to make that happen. So
Yep.
say more about those
Yeah.
2 points.
Yeah, so the time management piece is really simple. It is about making sure you are setting aside time specifically for networking. And when I say networking, I mean connecting with some new people and re-engaging with people that are currently in your network. And that re-engaging could be I send an email every 6 months, every 3 months saying, how are things going? How's the new job, how's the job you've been at for 6 years, or whatever the case may be. Give me an update on what you're doing. By the way, I am thinking about leaving my job and starting a consultancy or some,
Mhm.
I just wondered, because you're an expert in this area, what do you think about that? What do you think about the opportunities that are out there?
Mhm.
And so I can send out tons of those emails because it's as simple as putting time on your calendar to remind you to send these emails at some point.
Mhm.
And if it takes you more than a couple of minutes to write these emails, then you're also doing that wrong. Um,
Yeah.
so again, there's no excuse for being able to schedule some of the time, write some of the emails, catch up with people that are currently in your network, find out what they're doing, find out let them know what you're up to, and keep that going over and over and over again for your entire professional career, or until somebody retires or decides to move to the moon or Mars, or they go with Elon or something, right?
Mars.
There's that, and then the other part, which is again, that time management piece, like I said, is so important. Again, like, hey, I love Netflix. I love binge watching stuff, right? I'm watching Last of Us. I'm watching the whole thing. Like, I love all that stuff. Take it, take a break from,
Yeah.
I know you need some downtime. I get it. Like, but take a break and invest, right? Just like you would stocks or any other thing, right? Because again, stocks are about long-term, dividends, right? Long-term return. So is network, right? And that's why a lot of people say just because it rhymes, right? They say your network is your net worth, right? Just because it rhymes is cute, but it's absolutely true. It's something that you're investing in, that you're hoping builds equity over time, just like a house, just like stocks, all those types of things. Your network should be just as important as any of those other things in order to build a successful career.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that I assumed historically was that, nobody else really wanted to help me or wanted me to succeed. I kind of had this me against the world mentality. And
yes, we all have those demons inside of us. And those demons come and talk to me. They come and tell me, who wants to hear, why should you write a book? Like, why, what makes you so important? Those demons are in everybody. They absolutely are. But it's up to us to listen to them or not.
Yeah. And I think you challenged me to sort of reality test some of those demons, those messages. And, you challenged me to reach out to people that I didn't think that would reach back. And I would say, the 80-20 rule, probably 80% didn't reach back, but the 20% that did were insanely valuable and helpful.
And those are the people of value, right? It's the same thing when, if you ever watch like, shows like Gold Rush, right? Where they're like digging out giant pits to get like this much gold. That's how it works. That's how things work in nature, right? That's how they work in human relationships. Yes, you're absolutely right. You might get 20% of return from your 100% of activity, but that's 20% that you never had before.
Absolutely. So if, let's say someone's coming directly out of college and they've never networked before, what are sort of your 3 tips of like, do these 3 things to start, or somebody who's afraid and never networked before?
Yeah. So I would say number 1 is build out your profile on LinkedIn, like fill it out as best as you can. And then be active on LinkedIn. Try to connect with other people. Because now, it's different than when I, was younger, where you had to connect with people. Now you can follow people, right? So you don't have to necessarily 100% like connect with them, but you can follow people in the industries that you're interested in becoming more a part of, right? We can do that on Instagram. We can do that on Twitter. LinkedIn's just a great place because it is assumed that we are coming there with our professional cloak on, right? Versus an Instagram or a TikTok or things like that. That's not to say those things aren't of value either. It's a different mindset that you have to approach those things with. So number 1 is find those people, follow them, start interacting with their content that they're putting out. Start commenting, liking, sharing it, those types of things. Start building into those communities. Then, to that point, secondly, look for those communities that they might not necessarily be on LinkedIn. They might be, for salespeople, especially technical salespeople, there is a great number of creators on TikTok that do awesome tips and things on SaaS sales, and you wouldn't think about it, but it's amazing. Like, it's great. I really enjoy their content. But if it's arts or photography, like obviously Instagram, those are things you can get in and start building relationships there. Again, if I see the same person commenting 5, 6, 7 times, liking, doing all that stuff, and then they show up in my DMs, like, I'm going to be much more receptive to hearing what they have to say. They might say, hey, we'd love to jump on a quick video call just to pick your brain about some things and whatever. Well, actually, don't say the pick your brain thing, because that's bad.
Yeah, you did mention that in the book. Not to say
So
that.
so that's number two is right. So number one is get active, right? Fill out that profile, start getting active. Number two, look for those communities and start being a part of those things. And then number three is put yourself out there. Like let people know that you are in this field. I don't care if it's nursing or whatever, like post a picture of you putting a band-aid on your toddler or what, like
Yeah.
I'm looking for, look at what I can do with toddlers. Imagine what I could do at a hospital. Like, look, help me find my next job as a nurse.
Yeah.
Standing out and being consistent is then now the next key, right? So if I had one word for me in 2023, it is consistency. And that's what I would tell people is consistency wins every day of the week. If you show up consistently, at some point, that consistency is going to repay you in 10 times over.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love when you're talking about just showing up consistently. It's not about even showing up brilliantly every time or that you have to be a genius or every post has to be this eloquent reflection on, I don't know, SaaS sales or something like that.
Nope.
It's just about consistency that people are
It is about
regularly
consistency.
seeing it. Yeah.
Yep. And that's how we learn, right? I mean, again, it's like they talk about in health and stuff, right? Getting reps in, right? How did Shaquille O'Neal get better at free throws? Like he threw a million free throws over and over again, right? It wasn't because he was, you know what I mean? It wasn't like he was like, well, I'm not good at free throws, so I should get out of basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to give up now. Right.
Right. So you might be this great artist or salesperson or product person. And you're great at those things. And you're like, but I'm not good at posting and social media. It's like, yeah, nobody is at first. It takes reps. You got to put some time in. You got to get good at it. But too many people hold themselves back and they're like, well, but you got to, nobody cares. Okay. Yeah. Nobody cares. It's fleeting. It's there for a moment and then it's gone. Nobody's thinking about you 24 hours from now, a week from now. So again, that's why consistency works, but that's why also you don't have to beat yourself up if you post stuff that doesn't get any likes or any connections. That's totally fine. That's where you should start, is by not getting any interaction, because people don't know who you are. They don't know why they should care because they haven't built a relationship with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in your book, there's one more quote. It says, it relates to what we're talking about, but it says, start small, be persistent, and add value, and you will be on your way to career success. Yep. I love the point about the consistency, persistency, adding value, and consistently choosing to be a person of value in someone's network. Talk a little bit more about what it means to you to be a person of value in someone's network.
So we all have value as human beings. And a lot of us spend time doing research. We watch just on anything, right? We're trying to learn, we're trying to get better at things. And we're doing the research and we're learning these things. Some people are more book readers. Some people are on Udemy taking classes. Some people are on the LinkedIn, right? You'll see people post like, hey, I just got certified in Google Analytics or things like that. So as we're growing and we're learning and adding these, giving that value back to people, that time that we've put in to get better ourselves and then sharing that back with other people, that is a ton of value, right? Because again, while I love leadership books, and I love books about team management and building companies and those sorts of things, I would much rather hear from a guy who's 20 miles away or a gal who runs a team over here than I would from Simon Sinek or something like those things. I mean, those people are great or whatever, right? But those aren't the people that I really look at as peers, right? They are kind of like pedestal-y type people, right? Because they're doing like they're doing TED Talks. Simon Sinek gets $250,000 for a speaking engagement. But if you look at like Simon Sinek and you look at his history, like he's never led a team or ran a company. Like, he's a marketing guy. And he's great at marketing and he's great at marketing leadership. But if I can follow somebody who, like my friend Zach Hughes, who's VP of IT at CHS, which is the world's largest co-op it's an amazing and learning about how he's growing and how he's sharing that growth, it's amazing. And I want to follow those things. Right. But when I first saw some of the first posts, I was like, who is this guy? I don't know who this guy is. But then over time, I'm like, oh, wow, he keeps showing up. There must be something more there that I should really dig into it more. And then I learn from him. And that's how how I've really built a ton of growth. Like books and school are great, but that's only a small part about what makes us great in our careers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I love too, I want to say, like, I love that you're talking about someone consistently appearing in your feed, Zach, and you realize that he has value to add to your network or knowledge that you can grow from. I would say if someone is afraid, at least for me, if someone's afraid to start posting, post once a week, but the secret to the best and most juiciest part of LinkedIn is the comment section. If you can comment on someone's post and you can add value or add to the conversation, people will notice you. And even if you're posting once a week, if you're consistently commenting every day on people's feeds, usually people that are, not macro influencers, but, local networks, definitely they'll notice you for sure. They'll definitely notice you. So we're
and that consistency on that, to your point, Britta, is that even though these seem like little drops in the water, but consistently keeping those drops in the water will eventually create waves.
Totally. I mean, teeny little drops coming out of a faucet can be gallons a day,
That's exactly right. And that's why people, like I said, that's why I encourage people not to look at networking as this big upheaval or this big new addition to their lives. You can sprinkle it in. Like, again, my family, my business, all these things, these are the boulders in my life, but the network is kind of this sand between the boulders that's like holding them together. Right. That's allowing me to give, to benefit my family and to benefit my business in these other things. And then along the way, I can help other people as well. And how awesome is that?
Yeah. So awesome. So we're nearing the end of our time. I usually like to do rapid fire questions at the end. So really quick, tell me, what is the oddest job that you have ever had?
Oddest job. My first job was folding t-shirts at a screen printing shop.
Okay.
I got $5 an hour. And I sat at the end of a hot dryer as the t-shirts would get screen printed and roll off the dryer. And then I would fold them and stack them. And I don't know if that was my oddest. I mean, that's probably pretty close to it, because it was just such a, my brother-in-law had given me the job, I think, just to please my sister.
That's so, you must be an expert at folding shirts.
I'm not bad. I mean, I'm no Marie Kondo or whatever, but I'm
Marie Kondo
up there,
I love that. And then, okay, the last question I have for you is, what is the worst career advice that someone's ever given you?
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. There's so much. there's so much. I've had people say, people with your background can't make it in this world or whatever, right? Or can't make it in these things. Or I've had people say, because you don't have this degree, you can't get to this level. And so some of the worst things were people telling me, like, you got to go get a degree to get that job. Right. So, some of the best advice I got was, don't let school get in the way of your education. I got that when I was much younger. And so for me, a lot of it was around more some of the worst advice I got from people was around traditional education, traditional roads. You go to school, get an internship, get that locked in that job. And I think people do that because that is kind of as society has done, much like with the way we have schools structured to build factory workers, right? Teaching people how to sit in rows, open books, close book, get there on time, close, that teaches you how to work in society and be a part of a job. Then what we did is we created this post-education system to filter out the top talent, as it were. And then we had this kind of tracked for them. But I think the worst advice I got was, you need to, wherever you're at in your career, you need to back up and go back down that route. And that was something I fought against early on, because I had known so much. I'd known so many entrepreneurs and so many people that, I'd be surprised if they could spell their own names sometimes, but they were fantastic business people. So, and they just had a knack for it. And they wasn't because they were born that way, is because they surrounded themselves, network, with other people that they could rely on and learn from. And that, to me, I think has been the biggest revelation in writing the book.
Well, awesome. I'm so glad that you joined me. I feel like we could continue to talk about this for literal hours, but if you haven't purchased a copy of this book, I highly recommend it on Amazon. And if you have anybody that's graduating from high school or college soon, it's a great little book to give them, to start them on the right path in their networking journey. Thank you so much for joining me, Kurt, and hopefully we'll have you on again sometime soon.
I would love it. Thank you so much, Britta. Like I said, I'm so proud of you and the work you're doing. And it's just been a joy, not only to be here, but to watch your career blossom over the years. So thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too.